December 7, 1941, 0600 hours. Imperial Japanese Navy Combined Fleet Flagship Nagato, anchored in Hashirajima Bay. Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo reviewed final intelligence summaries before launching the most audacious naval operation in history. Through the dim light of the flag bridge, he studied reconnaissance photographs of Pearl Harbor. 8 American battleships lay at anchor, obsolete relics of a bygone era. The American carrier force, though absent, numbered only 7 vessels. Japan possessed 10 fleet carriers. The Americans build slowly, he remarked to his staff. 1 carrier requires 3 years. Even if they begin construction today, 1945 arrives before their new vessels affect the balance of power. Through his binoculars, he could see sailors preparing aircraft on Akagi's flight deck. Within hours, those planes would cripple American naval power in the Pacific. The mathematics seemed simple. Japan's advantage would only grow. What Nagumo didn't know, what Japanese naval intelligence had failed to grasp, was that American shipyards were already transforming. Within 18 months, American production would achieve what Japanese planners considered physically impossible: 1 carrier every 21 days. The mathematics of industrial democracy were about to rewrite naval warfare forever. Japanese naval doctrine taught that aircraft carriers were precision instruments requiring years to construct and train, elite shipwrights working with specialized steel, experienced crews trained through countless exercises, officers educated over decades of service. This wisdom came from Japan's own construction timelines. Shokaku required 4 years from keel laying to commissioning. Surely America, with its democratic chaos and inexperienced workforce, would build even slower. In 1943 alone, American shipyards launched 17 fleet and light carriers. The Japanese launched 2. Within 24 months, American carrier superiority would become so absolute that Japanese naval aviation ceased to exist as an effective fighting force. The lessons of mass production were about to be written across the Pacific in steel and aircraft aluminum. The Imperial Japanese Navy based its carrier doctrine on the principle of concentrated elite force. Officers studied at the Naval War College learned that carrier aviation required the highest quality in all aspects. Highly trained pilots flying superior aircraft from meticulously constructed ships would defeat larger but inferior forces. Quality trumped quantity. The Kido Butai, Japan's carrier striking force, embodied this philosophy. 6 fleet carriers crewed by veterans, launching aircraft piloted by aviators with an average of 800 flight hours. Japanese naval planners calculated that 1 properly trained Japanese pilot equaled 5 American pilots. 1 Japanese carrier equaled 3 American vessels. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto articulated this confidence in 1940. The Americans are quantitatively superior, but qualitatively inferior. Their training is insufficient. Their pilots lack spirit. Their industrial workers lack discipline. Democratic societies cannot produce the precision required for modern naval warfare. Japanese carrier construction reflected this quality obsession. Shokaku and Zuikaku incorporated lessons from a decade of carrier operations: armored flight decks, sophisticated damage control, redundant systems. Each vessel required 50,000 tons of specialized steel, 18,000 workers, and 4 years of construction. The ships represented the pinnacle of naval engineering. Pearl Harbor validated every assumption. On December 7, 1941, Japanese carrier aviation achieved what naval theorists considered impossible. 6 carriers launching 353 aircraft destroyed 8 battleships, 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 188 aircraft. Japanese losses totaled 29 aircraft and 55 men. At the Battle of the Java Sea in February 1942, Japanese carriers demonstrated complete dominance. Kaga and Akagi sank the carrier USS Langley without losing a single aircraft. In the Indian Ocean, 5 Japanese carriers destroyed 2 British heavy cruisers, 1 carrier, and 2 destroyers. British losses exceeded 500 men. Japanese casualties remained negligible. During the 4 months following Pearl Harbor, Japanese carrier forces ranged across 1/3 of the Earth's surface, sinking Allied vessels at will. The carrier Soryu alone sank 11 ships, totaling 63,000 tons. These victories confirmed Japanese assumptions about qualitative superiority. By May 1942, Japan controlled the Western Pacific. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. American carriers numbered 4 operational vessels. Japan possessed 8. Production timelines guaranteed Japanese superiority for years. Japanese military doctrine explicitly incorporated racial superiority, a strategic calculation. The 1934 Imperial Defense Policy stated that Western races lack the spiritual strength and technical precision of the Yamato people. American workers, divided by race and class, could never match Japanese discipline and unity. Americans are shopkeepers and farmers. Naval Minister Shigetaro Shimada told the Diet in 1941, "They play at war while we train for it." Their mongrel workforce cannot produce weapons matching Japanese craftsmanship. Democratic chaos prevents the focused effort required for modern warfare. Intelligence reports reinforced these assumptions. A 1940 assessment of American shipbuilding capacity concluded that American yards lack the skilled labor, specialized equipment, and industrial coordination necessary for mass carrier production. Their welding techniques are inferior, their quality control inadequate, their workforce unreliable. Even moderate voices accepted these premises. Admiral Yamamoto, educated at Harvard and skeptical of war with America, believed Japanese qualitative superiority would prevail in limited conflict. "The Americans build quantity," he noted. "We build quality. 1 Yamato battleship equals 5 American vessels." Not all Japanese officers shared this confidence. Commander Tota Ishimaru, naval attaché in Washington from 1938 to 1941, filed reports describing American industrial mobilization. He documented Ford's Willow Run bomber plant, Kaiser's shipyard innovations, Roosevelt's massive rearmament appropriations. His September 1941 report stated, "American industry operates on principles unknown in Japan: assembly line production, standardized components, automated welding. If applied to warship construction, these methods could produce vessels faster than intelligence estimates." The Naval General Staff dismissed Ishimaru's warnings as defeatism. He was recalled to Tokyo and assigned to a destroyer in the South Pacific, effectively ending his career. His replacement in Washington received explicit instructions to report only information confirming Japanese superiority. Admiral Osami Nagano, Chief of the Naval General Staff, 61, from Kochi Prefecture. A veteran of the Russo-Japanese War, he had spent 4 decades studying naval warfare. Educated at the Naval War College and Harvard, he believed Japanese spiritual superiority compensated for material disadvantages. He had been taught that Bushido spirit defeated industrial capacity, that 1 elite warrior surpassed 10 factory workers. Vice Admiral Takijiro Onishi, Vice Chief of Naval General Staff, 49, from Hyogo Prefecture, an aviation pioneer who helped develop carrier doctrine in the 1920s, a technical expert who understood aircraft engineering and production logistics. He had personally supervised construction of Akagi and Kaga. He knew exactly how long carriers required to build. American claims seemed physically impossible. Captain Mitsuo Fuchida, 39, commander of the Pearl Harbor Strike Force, a veteran aviator with 3,000 flight hours. He had flown from carriers since 1928. Educated at the Naval War College, he understood carrier operations better than almost anyone in the Imperial Navy. He had been taught that carrier aviation required years of training and experience, that shortcuts produced inferior results. Commander Minoru Genda, 37, principal planner of the Pearl Harbor operation, a fighter pilot and tactical genius who had helped design Japan's carrier doctrine. Veteran of the China War, where he witnessed American equipment and pilots, he believed Japanese training and discipline compensated for any material disadvantages. 1-0 pilot equaled 5 American pilots. Commander Mitsuru Yoshida, 33, staff officer aboard the battleship Yamato, a logistics specialist who calculated fuel consumption, ammunition expenditure, and replacement rates. He understood the mathematics of attrition warfare. His calculations showed Japan winning a limited war, but losing a prolonged conflict. Few officers wanted to hear such assessments. Lieutenant Commander Masataki Okumiya, 31,000, naval aviator and intelligence analyst, an engineering graduate from Tokyo Imperial University, he studied American industrial capacity before the war. His reports on American aircraft production were dismissed as exaggerated. He knew American potential, but underestimated American execution. Engineer Captain Hideo Ohta, 45, naval construction specialist at Kure Naval Arsenal. He had supervised construction of Soryu and Hiryu. He knew every step required to build a carrier, every bottleneck and delay. He calculated construction timelines based on Japanese experience. American claims violated everything he understood about shipbuilding. Petty Officer First Class Haruo Yoshino, 28, aircraft maintenance chief aboard Shokaku. From a fishing village in Wakayama Prefecture, he had enlisted in 1931 and worked with carrier aircraft for a decade. He maintained the Zeros and dive bombers that struck Pearl Harbor. He believed Japanese aircraft were superior because he maintained them daily. Seaman First Class Kayoshi Takahashi, 22, damage control specialist aboard Zuikaku. From a farming family in Niigata, he represented the new conscript sailors flooding the fleet. Trained for 6 months before assignment to a carrier, he trusted his officers completely. When they said Japan was winning, he believed them. June 4, 1942, 102,180 miles northwest of Midway Atoll. Captain Mitsuo Fuchida stood on Akagi's bridge, his abdomen still tender from the appendectomy that kept him from leading the strike. Through binoculars, he watched American dive bombers appear through the cloud layer. Impossible. The American carriers should be elsewhere, caught by the strike force already launched. Within 5 minutes, 3 Japanese carriers burned. Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, veterans of Pearl Harbor, transformed into funeral pyres. The 4th carrier, Hiryu, would burn by evening. Of the 6 carriers that struck Pearl Harbor, 4 died at Midway. Fuchida survived, plucked from the water after Akagi exploded. In the hospital at Yokosuka, he learned the full extent of the disaster. 4 fleet carriers lost, 2048 aircraft destroyed, 3,057 men killed. Most devastating, 110 experienced pilots died, aviators with average flight hours exceeding 800. The American task force included 3 carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown. Japanese intelligence had reported Yorktown sunk at Coral Sea 1 month earlier. Yet the vessel appeared at Midway, repaired and operational. The official report stated that Yorktown suffered damage requiring 3 months in dry dock. Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard repaired the carrier in 48 hours. Commander Genda examined the intelligence reports at Combined Fleet Headquarters. The timeline seemed impossible. Yorktown absorbed 3 bomb hits and 2 torpedo strikes at Coral Sea. The flight deck sustained major damage, bulkheads cracked, fuel lines ruptured. Japanese carriers suffering equivalent damage required months for repair. The Americans possess repair capacity beyond our calculations. Genda wrote in his June 15 assessment, Yorktown's appearance at Midway indicates industrial capability exceeding intelligence estimates. We must reassess American production timelines. But this was merely the first shock. The Americans launched Essex in July 1942, just 9 months after Pearl Harbor. Japanese intelligence noted the launch with professional interest. 1 carrier replaced 4 lost vessels. The ratio still favored Japan. Then came the real revelation. October 1942, Imperial Naval Intelligence Headquarters, Tokyo. Lieutenant Commander Okumiya compiled reports from multiple sources: submarine reconnaissance, signals intelligence, diplomatic sources, and technical analysis all confirmed the same impossible conclusion. American shipyards had launched not 1 but 3 fleet carriers since Midway, Essex, Lexington II, and Yorktown Sir. Construction timelines averaged 11 months from keel to launch. Okumiya calculated that achieving such speed required revolutionary construction methods. Traditional carrier construction involved building the hull, then installing internal systems, then adding the flight deck and island. Each step required completion before the next began. Sequential construction for Shokaku consumed 4 years. The American approach, revealed through intelligence analysis, used modular construction. Prefabricated sections built simultaneously in different areas, then assembled on the hull. Welding replaced riveting, reducing construction time by 40%. Standardized components allowed workers to specialize in specific tasks, rather than learning entire construction processes. American methods sacrifice quality for speed, Okumiya reported. Welded hulls lack the strength of riveted construction. Prefabricated sections cannot match custom-fitted components. These vessels will prove inferior in combat. Yet the evidence mounted. By December 1942, American yards had launched 6 new carriers. Independence, Princeton, Belleau Wood joined the fleet carriers. These light carriers, converted from cruiser hulls, required only 5 months from conversion start to commissioning. Engineer Captain Ota analyzed captured photographs of American shipyards. Newport News Shipbuilding in Virginia had 4 carriers under simultaneous construction. The photographs showed assembly methods he considered impossible. Overhead cranes moved entire prefabricated sections. Automated welding machines operated continuously. Workers numbered in thousands rather than hundreds. The mathematics defied Japanese experience. Newport News Shipbuilding employed 31,000 workers. Kura Naval Arsenal, Japan's largest shipyard, employed 14,000. The American facility could build carriers twice as fast using innovative methods that Japanese yards lacked the equipment to implement. In Camden, New Jersey, New York Shipbuilding Corporation converted cruiser hulls to light carriers on an assembly line. The facility received a bare cruiser hull, then installed flight deck, hangar deck, elevators, and catapults in 150 days. 9 carriers would emerge from this single facility. The workforce demographics shocked Japanese analysts. Intelligence photographs showed women operating welding equipment, African Americans managing crane operations, teenagers working alongside craftsmen. Americans employ untrained workers, one analyst noted. This confirms inferior quality. What Japanese intelligence failed to grasp was that American standardization made training unnecessary. A worker didn't need to understand entire construction processes. They needed to perfect one specific task, repeated thousands of times. The woman welding bulkhead seams executed the identical weld on 40 carriers. She became more proficient than a Japanese shipwright who built 2 carriers in a career. Newport News Shipbuilding produced 1 Essex-class carrier every 8 months. This single facility outproduced all Japanese carrier construction 1942 to 1945. The assembly line eliminated bottlenecks that plagued traditional construction. When one section delayed, work continued on others. Completion dates became predictable rather than uncertain. The evidence was mounting, but Japanese leadership refused to accept the implications. February 1943, Imperial Naval General Staff Headquarters, Tokyo. Lieutenant Commander Okumiya spread reconnaissance photographs across the conference table before Admiral Nagano and senior staff officers. Satellite imagery from submarines and signals intelligence confirmed American carrier construction had accelerated. The numbers were staggering. 12 carriers launched in 1942. Projections indicated 17 carriers would launch in 1943. This represents enemy propaganda. Admiral Nagano declared, "The Americans exaggerate production to undermine our morale. Intelligence must verify these claims through direct observation." Vice Admiral Onishi studied the photographs with professional skepticism. Assume the reports are accurate. 17 carriers in 1 year requires construction timelines we cannot achieve. How do the Americans accomplish this? Okumiya presented his analysis. They sacrifice quality. Welded construction proves faster but weaker. Standardized components allow rapid assembly but reduce individual vessel capabilities. These carriers will be inferior to our remaining vessels. Then we maintain qualitative superiority, Nagano concluded. 1 Shokaku equals 3 American carriers. If they build 17 inferior vessels, we effectively face 6 equivalent carriers. This remains manageable. Commander Yoshida, the logistics specialist, raised a careful objection. The American vessels carry comparable aircraft numbers. Essex-class carriers operate 90 aircraft. Shokaku operates 72. If American carriers prove combat effective despite construction methods, the numerical disparity becomes critical. American pilots lack training, Onishi countered. Our aviators train for 3 years. American pilots receive 6 months training. Quality defeats quantity in air combat. To accept that American carriers matched Japanese capabilities meant accepting that democratic industrial methods surpassed Japan's carefully crafted approach. It meant acknowledging that women and minorities could produce weapons equal to Japanese master craftsmen. The ideological implications proved too threatening. 3 months later, the battlefield provided undeniable evidence. By May 1943, American carrier forces had grown to 7 fleet carriers and 9 light carriers. Japanese operational carriers numbered 5 vessels. The ratio had reversed completely. At Guadalcanal, American carriers operated continuously, while Japanese carriers faced fuel shortages and aircraft losses they couldn't replace. Commander Genda, now working at Naval Aviation Headquarters, calculated replacement rates. American carriers launching in 1943 would enter service by year's end. Japanese shipyards had 2 carriers under construction, both delayed by material shortages. Taiho wouldn't commission until March 1944. Shinano, converted from a Yamato-class battleship hull, wouldn't commission until late 1944. "We are losing the carrier production race," Genda warned in a staff meeting. "American construction accelerates while ours stagnates. By 1944, they will possess 30 carriers while we operate fewer than 10. His analysis reached Admiral Nagano's desk with a notation from the Intelligence Department. Commander Genda's assessment reflects defeatist thinking. American carrier quality remains inferior. Quantitative advantages do not determine naval warfare outcomes. Reality would not wait for acceptance. American carriers were already hunting Japanese vessels across the Pacific. August 1943, Rabaul Naval Base, New Britain. A damaged American aircraft made an emergency landing on Japanese-controlled territory. Technical intelligence teams reached the Grumman Hellcat before American rescue forces. Engineer officers examined the aircraft with professional fascination. The specifications seemed impossible for a mass-produced fighter. The Hellcat incorporated advanced features Japanese engineers associated with limited production aircraft. Armor plating protected the pilot from multiple angles. Self-sealing fuel tanks prevented fire from bullet strikes. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine generated 2,000 horsepower, more powerful than any Japanese fighter engine. Radio equipment included IFF transponders and homing beacons. "This aircraft requires specialized manufacturing," the lead engineer reported. "The armor plate alone demands precision machining. American claims of producing thousands of such aircraft annually cannot be accurate." Testing proved otherwise. The captured Hellcat's construction quality matched Japanese fighters built by master craftsmen. Welds showed consistent quality. Components fit precisely. The engine demonstrated reliability Japanese engines rarely achieved. Most troubling, serial numbers indicated this aircraft was one of thousands produced. Intelligence officers examined documents recovered from the pilot. A training manual dated June 1943 referenced Hellcat production exceeding 500 aircraft per month. The pilot's logbook showed he received his Hellcat in May 1943, only months after the aircraft's introduction. Japanese pilots flew the same Zero models introduced in 1940. Japanese intelligence calculated that producing 500 Hellcats monthly required industrial capacity Japan didn't possess. The R2800 engine alone demanded precision manufacturing beyond most Japanese facilities. Armor plate production consumed specialized steel, Japan reserved for battleships, yet Americans installed such armor in fighters. Grumman's Bethpage facility on Long Island employed 25,600 workers producing Hellcats on an assembly line. The factory operated 3 shifts, 24 hours daily. Workers, including 6,400 women, 25%, 2,300 African Americans, 9%, assembled aircraft using standardized components manufactured across the country. Engines arrived from Connecticut, armor plate from Pennsylvania, instruments from Massachusetts. This distributed production network allowed American industry to exceed Japanese capacity, despite resource limitations. When Japanese bombs damaged one facility, production continued at others. When one component faced shortages, engineers designed alternatives using available materials. Japanese aircraft production remained centralized. Mitsubishi built Zeros at Nagoya. Nakajima built fighters at Musashino. American bombing of these facilities would cripple Japanese fighter production. American production proved impossible to destroy because it existed everywhere. The captured Hellcat revealed another advantage. Maintenance requirements proved minimal. The engine ran 400 hours between overhauls. Japanese engines required overhaul every 150 hours. American aircraft returned to service faster and required fewer replacement parts. Engineer Captain Ota filed his assessment in September 1943. American aircraft demonstrate production quality exceeding Japanese fighters. Their industrial methods produce reliable, well-built aircraft rapidly. We must reassess assumptions about mass production quality. His report was classified and filed. Accepting American industrial superiority meant accepting defeat. November 20th, 1943, 5545 hours. Waters off Tarawa, Atoll. Rear Admiral Keiji Shibasaki commanded 4,800 Japanese troops defending Tarawa. Through his command bunker's observation slit, he witnessed the horizon filling with ships. The American invasion fleet included 17 carriers, 11 fleet carriers, 6 light carriers. Shibasaki counted them personally, disbelieving the numbers. At 0545 hours, American carrier aircraft began striking Japanese positions. The attack continued without pause for 3 days. Wave after wave of dive bombers, torpedo bombers, and fighters. Shibasaki estimated 300 aircraft maintained constant pressure. His radio operators intercepted American communications indicating the carriers rotated missions, launching aircraft while others recovered and rearmed. Of the 4,800 Japanese defenders, only 17 survived capture. The others died fighting or in suicide charges. American naval aviation had achieved complete dominance. Japanese fighters defending Tarawa totaled 40 aircraft. They faced over 900 carrier aircraft. Not one Japanese fighter survived the battle. Captain Fuchida, recovering from wounds received at Midway, studied the Tarawa battle reports at Naval Aviation Headquarters. The American carrier force that attacked Tarawa exceeded the entire Japanese carrier fleet's aircraft capacity. American losses totaled 88 aircraft. They were replaced within days from escort carriers bringing replacement aircraft from Hawaii. Commander Yoshida calculated the logistics. Supporting 17 carriers required fuel shipments Japanese logistics couldn't manage. Essex-class carriers consumed 2,500 barrels of fuel oil daily during operations. 17 carriers required 42,500 barrels daily. American fleet oilers delivered fuel continuously, allowing sustained operations. Japanese carriers faced fuel rationing. After the November 1943 Tokyo Express run to Rabaul, Shokaku returned to Japan with fuel tanks nearly empty. No replenishment existed. The carrier remained in port for 3 weeks awaiting fuel shipment. American carriers never stopped operating. The kill ratios proved equally devastating. At the Battle of the Philippine Sea in June 1944, Japanese carrier aircraft attacked American task forces in waves. Of 373 Japanese aircraft launched, 243 were shot down. American losses totaled 29 aircraft. The ratio exceeded 8.1. Lieutenant Commander Okumiya interviewed surviving pilots after the Philippine Sea battle. One pilot reported, "The sky was full of Hellcats. For every Japanese aircraft, I saw 10 American fighters. We dodged, dove, climbed. Nothing mattered. They were everywhere." Another pilot described the American combat air patrols. They operated in relays. When one group ran low on fuel, another group appeared. The Americans never stopped. We exhausted our fuel trying to reach the carriers. Most aircraft ditched before engaging. The mathematical reality had become undeniable. American carriers launched more aircraft than Japanese carriers possessed. American pilot training, though shorter than Japanese training, proved adequate because Hellcat's technical superiority compensated for experience gaps. American industrial capacity meant losses were irrelevant. Destroyed aircraft were replaced faster than Japan could destroy them. The pattern was now undeniable across all fronts. Japanese naval aviation was being systematically destroyed by American production capacity. July 1944. Combined Fleet Headquarters, Tokyo. From senior admirals to seaman conscripts, every level of the Imperial Navy now understood the truth. American carrier production had achieved levels Japanese planners considered impossible. Intelligence reports confirmed 27 American fleet and light carriers operated in the Pacific. 7 escort carriers supported each major operation. Japan operated 4 carriers. Reports from multiple theaters confirmed the same reality. In the Philippine Sea, American carriers operated with impunity. In the Mariana Islands, American carrier aviation provided continuous close air support. At Saipan, Japanese positions faced carrier aircraft from dawn to dusk without respite. The Americans possessed sufficient carriers to maintain constant pressure while rotating vessels for replenishment. Even the most fanatical staff officers accepted reality. Captain Rikihei Inoguchi, a vocal advocate of offensive operations, admitted in July 1944, "The Americans possess carrier superiority we cannot challenge. Their production exceeds our capacity to sink their vessels. Every carrier we destroy is replaced by 3 more." Strategic implications became clear. Japanese staff officers calculated that even perfect tactical execution couldn't overcome numerical disadvantage. If Japanese carriers achieved 3-1 kill ratios, American production still outpaced losses. Japan would run out of carriers before America stopped building them. The diversity of American production challenged Japanese ideology fundamentally. Intelligence photographs from American shipyards showed women managing complex machinery, African Americans supervising construction teams, immigrants working alongside native-born Americans. This mongrel workforce, supposedly inferior to unified Japanese laborers, outproduced Japanese craftsmen by factors of 10. "We believed democratic chaos prevented focused production," Commander Genda admitted in a staff meeting. "We were wrong. Democratic society mobilizes more effectively than military dictatorship. Their free economy produces more than our controlled economy. Our ideology blinded us." Letters from Japanese sailors began expressing these realizations despite censors. Petty Officer Yoshino wrote his family in August 1944, "The Americans waste more than we possess. I watched them jettison damaged aircraft into the sea, aircraft we would repair over weeks. They discard. They launch aircraft for practice while we conserve fuel for combat operations." Seaman Takahashi wrote his parents, "We are told we fight for divine wind protection, but the Americans have their own wind, the wind of production. It blows continuously, and we cannot stand against it." Japanese naval intelligence attempted multiple approaches to understanding American production. Agents in neutral countries filed reports on American shipyard employment, steel production, and aircraft manufacturing. The numbers confirmed worst fears. American production was accelerating, not plateauing. Submarine reconnaissance photographed American shipyards. The images showed multiple carriers under simultaneous construction at facilities across the country. Intelligence officers counted 27 carriers in various construction stages, even assuming half would never complete. The numbers overwhelmed Japanese capacity. Captured American prisoners couldn't explain the production miracle. Pilots knew only that aircraft appeared continuously. Sailors knew carriers launched monthly. The system was so vast, distributed and automated that individual participants couldn't describe it. The industrial machine had become larger than anyone's comprehension. By October 1944, even leadership could no longer maintain denial. The kamikaze special attack strategy emerged from this recognition. If Japanese carriers couldn't match American carriers through conventional combat, perhaps suicide attacks could achieve favorable exchange ratios. The strategy represented admission of complete conventional failure. October 24, 1944, 0800 hours. Battle of Leyte Gulf. Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita commanded the center force approaching Leyte Gulf. His surface fleet included the battleships Yamato and Musashi, cruisers and destroyers, no carriers. Japanese carrier aviation no longer existed as an effective force. The 4 remaining carriers operated as decoys, carrying minimal aircraft. Through the morning, American carrier aircraft attacked Kurita's force in waves. At 10:30 hours, Musashi absorbed her first torpedo hit. By 13:30 hours, the battleship had absorbed 17 bomb hits and 19 torpedo strikes. At 19:35 hours, Musashi capsized and sank. Of 2,399 crew, 1,023 died. The Americans deployed 6 fleet carriers and 6 light carriers against Kurita. The carriers launched 259 aircraft against Musashi alone. Kurita watched the unsinkable battleship sink beneath sustained carrier attack. No Japanese carriers existed to provide counter-air support. At Leyte Gulf's conclusion, Japan had lost 4 carriers, 3 battleships, 10 cruisers and 9 destroyers. American losses included 1 light carrier, 2 escort carriers, 2 destroyers, and 1 destroyer escort. The casualty ratio demonstrated complete American dominance. Admiral Nagano received the battle reports in Tokyo. The numbers told the story. American carriers had achieved absolute superiority. Japanese surface fleet sorted without air cover, because no air cover existed. The carrier arm that struck Pearl Harbor had been systematically destroyed by American production capacity. Statistical comparison proved definitive. Americans deployed 32 carriers at Leyte Gulf, including escort carriers. Japan deployed 4 carriers as decoys, carrying fewer than 100 aircraft combined. American carriers launched over 1,000 aircraft during the multi-day battle. Japanese carriers couldn't defend themselves, much less project power. Admiral Onishi, now commanding 1st Air Fleet in the Philippines, reported to Tokyo on October 26. Conventional carrier operations are no longer possible. American numerical superiority prevents effective combat. I have authorized special attack operations as the only viable tactic. Complete tactical helplessness characterized Japanese naval aviation's final months. Every sortie faced overwhelming American fighters. Every mission resulted in disproportionate losses. Every engagement proved the Americans possessed more aircraft, better trained pilots, superior technology, and unlimited replacement capacity. The war was mathematically over. Japan continued fighting because surrender remained unthinkable. But the industrial contest had been decided by American shipyards and aircraft factories. December 1944, Imperial Naval Ministry, Tokyo. Admiral Nagano summoned senior staff to present his assessment to Naval Minister Admiral Mitsumasa Yonei. The report documented complete carrier force destruction. American carrier production has achieved levels we cannot match or counter. Our carrier aviation exists only in memory. The Americans operate 40 carriers. We operate none effectively. The knowledge spread through all ranks despite censorship. Officers discussed American carrier numbers openly. Sailors observed that training flights had ceased due to fuel shortages, while intelligence reported American carriers operating continuously. The truth required no official confirmation. Everyone serving in the Pacific had witnessed American carrier dominance. Medical officers documented psychological impact. Reports described pilots refusing to fly missions against American task forces. Carrier attack psychosis emerged as recognized condition. Pilots showed symptoms including tremors, insomnia, and refusal to board aircraft when missions targeted American carriers. Survival rates for carrier attacks had fallen below 20%. Vice Admiral Onishi noted in his January 1945 diary, "Young pilots understand they will not return. They fly because duty demands it, because their families expect it, because surrender brings dishonor. But they know the outcome. American carriers have become death sentences. We send them to die, achieving nothing." A final example illustrated the hopelessness. In January 1945, a Japanese strike force of 36 aircraft attacked American carriers off Formosa. Of 36 aircraft launched, 2 returned. Neither scored hits. American Combat Air Patrol destroyed the others. The Americans launched replacement aircraft from escort carriers the next day. Japanese aircraft losses could not be replaced. American carrier production 1941 to 1945 totaled 141 carriers across all classes. Fleet carriers numbered 24 vessels. Light carriers totaled 9. Escort carriers reached 108. Japanese production totaled 15 carriers across all classes. Production ratios demonstrated American industrial dominance. Americans built 9.4 carriers for every Japanese carrier. Construction time averaged 14 months for Essex-class fleet carriers. Japanese fleet carriers required 42 months on average. Casualty statistics reflected this disparity. Japan lost 17 carriers to all causes during the war. America lost 12 carriers, all replaced within months by new construction. Japanese carrier aircrew casualties exceeded 14,000 killed. American aircrew casualties totaled approximately 4,900 killed, each loss filled by newly trained pilots. Economic comparison showed vast resource differences. America spent $11 billion on carrier construction 1941 to 1945. Japan spent approximately $1.8 billion. The ratio exceeded 6.1 in American favor. The carrier production campaign shortened the Pacific War by approximately 18 months. Without American carrier superiority, island-hopping campaigns would have proved impossible. naval surface actions would have continued inconclusively for years. The carriers enabled the strategic advances that brought American bombers within range of Japanese home islands. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Admiral Nagano, now 82, attended a symposium on naval aviation history. American admirals who commanded carrier task forces shared panels with former Japanese officers. The reconciliation remained incomplete, but professional dialogue had begun. Nagano met Admiral Raymond Spruance, who commanded American carriers at Midway and the Philippine Sea. "We calculated your nation required 3 years to build carriers," Nagano said through a translator. "You built them in 11 months. We laughed at intelligence reports claiming such speed. We stopped laughing at Tarawa when 17 carriers attacked simultaneously." Spruance's response demonstrated professional respect rather than triumph. "Your carriers at Pearl Harbor were magnificent vessels, better built than ours initially. But we could afford to build adequate vessels rapidly, while you built perfect vessels slowly. Adequate in quantity, defeated perfection in scarcity." Captain Fukuda, who had converted to Christianity and lived in the United States, added his perspective. "We never understood that American production represented democracy's strength. Your workers built carriers because they chose to, because they profited from it, because free enterprise motivated them. Our workers built carriers because military officers ordered them. Motivation determined output." The philosophical exchange acknowledged that the carrier war proved industrial democracy's advantages. American shipyards mobilized voluntary labor more effectively than Japanese forced labor. Free enterprise motivated workers more successfully than military discipline. Democratic chaos produced more carriers than authoritarian order. The carrier production campaign influenced post-war American naval doctrine permanently. The U.S. Navy learned that numerical superiority enabled operational flexibility impossible with limited forces. Modern carrier doctrine emphasizes maintaining sufficient carriers to project continuous power rather than preserving small numbers of perfect vessels. The Essex-class carriers continued serving decades after World War II. Several vessels received extensive modifications for jet aircraft, serving through the Vietnam War. Oriskany operated until 1976, 31 years after commissioning. The robust construction Japanese intelligence dismissed as inferior proved durable enough for multi-generational service. Former Imperial Navy officers contributed to Japan's post-war maritime self-defense force. Admiral Onishi's suicide in August 1945 removed one perspective, but others survived to help build democratic Japan. Commander Genda helped establish the JMSDF's doctrine, incorporating lessons from American carrier operations. The Intrepid Museum in New York preserves Essex-class carrier Intrepid as a memorial and educational facility. The vessel allows visitors to experience the spaces where American sailors worked during the war. Japanese visitors frequently tour the museum, studying the carrier that represented their defeat. Modern American carrier doctrine descends directly from World War II lessons. Nuclear-powered supercarriers operating today,